The council chamber of Nexus Prime Station stretched like a cathedral into the darkness of space. Through the massive transparent dome overhead, 1,000 stars watched the proceedings below. Ambassador Minji Park stood at the human delegation podium, her hands resting calmly on the smooth surface. She wore the simple dark blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps, without decoration or flourish. Her black hair was pulled back in a practical bun. She looked small compared to the towering aliens around her. The chamber held representatives from 63 species. Most looked like nothing from Earth's imagination. Some breathed methane. Others existed partially in different dimensions. A few were so old they remembered when this galaxy was young. But today, all eyes focused on the center of the chamber, where Emperor Thrain of the Valdrian Empire made his demands. Thrain stood 3 meters tall. His scales shimmered like bronze armor in the chamber's light. 4 arms crossed over his massive chest. His eyes, vertical slits of burning amber, swept across the council with barely concealed contempt. The Valdrian Empire controlled 40% of known space. They had conquered it system by system over the last 1,000 years. No species had successfully resisted them in living memory. The matter is simple, Thrain's voice boomed through the chamber. Translation devices rendered his words in hundreds of languages simultaneously. The region you call the Terran Corridor lies adjacent to Valdrian space. It represents a security concern. The Valdrian Empire hereby claims this territory for protection and administration. Whispers rippled through the assembled delegates. The Terran Corridor was not empty space. 3 human colony worlds existed there. New Perth, New Busan, Nova Sol. Together they held 40 million human civilians, families, children, people who had built lives on those worlds over 2 generations. Minji waited. She had learned patience in her 20 years of diplomatic service. She watched the other delegates, noting who looked away, who shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Fear had a smell, even across species barriers. The council reeked of it. Council mediator Vosh presided over the session from an elevated platform. The ancient insectoid's compound eyes glittered like black diamonds. His species, the Kresh, had mediated galactic disputes for 10,000 years. They were neutral by law and by tradition. Vosh's mandibles clicked softly as he spoke. The human delegation may respond. Minji stepped forward. Behind her, Captain Taehyun Lee stood at attention. The military attaché wore his dress uniform. He was young for his rank, only 35, but his eyes held the weight of someone much older. He carried no visible weapons. None were permitted in the council chamber. He did not need to. His presence alone spoke volumes. "Thank you, Mediator Vosh," Minji said. Her voice was quiet but clear. The chamber's acoustics carried it perfectly to every corner. The Valdrian Empire's concerns are noted. However, the Terran Corridor is not Valdrian space. It is neutral territory established by Council Treaty 447, ratified 80 years ago when humanity joined the galactic community. "Treaties can be renegotiated," Thrain interrupted, "when circumstances change." "Indeed they can," Minji agreed. Her tone remained pleasant, conversational, through proper diplomatic channels, with consent from all affected parties. That is why we have this council. That is why we have laws. "Laws?" Thrain's laugh echoed like thunder. "You speak of laws? Your species has been among the stars for barely a human lifetime. You are children, ignorant children playing with toys you do not understand." Several delegates shifted uncomfortably. Insulting another species so directly violated protocol. But no one spoke up. The Valdrian Empire's military might was too great. Their fleet could darken the skies of any world they chose. Better to let the humans face this alone than risk Valdrian anger. Minji did not react to the insult. She had heard worse. Humanity's reputation in the galaxy was well established. Weak, soft, emotional. They came from a planet called Earth, which most species considered a death world due to its harsh conditions, but humans themselves were seen as fragile. They had no natural armor, no venom, no telepathic abilities. Their technology, while advancing quickly, lagged behind the great powers. "Perhaps we are young," Minji said, "but even children can learn important lessons. We have learned many things in our short time among the stars. We have learned about different cultures, different values, different ways of seeing the universe." She paused. "We have also learned about ourselves." "This is pointless," Thrain growled. He turned to address the full council. "I did not come here to debate philosophy with primitives. The Valdrian Empire has made its position clear. The Terran corridor will be placed under our protection. The human colonists have 30 standard days to evacuate. After that, any who remain will be subject to Valdrian law." 30 days, Minji repeated softly, "to evacuate 40 million people, including the elderly, the sick, children. You know this is impossible." "That is not my concern. Then let me make it your concern." Minji's voice did not rise, but something in her tone changed. The temperature in the chamber seemed to drop. "The Terran corridor contains human worlds, human citizens, human children born under those suns who know no other home. These people are under Earth's protection." "That protection is not negotiable." "You threaten me?" Thrain took a step forward, his 4 arms uncrossed. "You? A species with barely 300 warships? The Valdrian Third Fleet alone numbers 500 vessels, each one capable of glassing a planet." "I threaten no one," Minji said. "I am stating a fact. Those worlds are ours. We will not abandon them. We cannot abandon them." Mediator Vosh clicked his mandibles again. "Ambassador Park, the Council recognizes your position. However, you must also recognize reality. The Valdrian Empire possesses significant military advantages. Perhaps a compromise could be reached. Shared administration, extended evacuation timeline, compensation for relocation." "No." The single word rang out clearly. Silence fell over the chamber. Even Thrain seemed surprised by the flat refusal. Minji continued, "We appreciate the mediator's efforts, but this is not a matter for compromise. Would the Valdrians accept shared administration of their core worlds? Would the Sistine Collective allow others to dictate where their people could live? Would the Goth surrender their colony spheres for an extended timeline and compensation?" She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of delegates who had stayed silent. "We are new to the galactic community. This is true. But we are not naive. We understand what this is. The Valdrians want the Terran corridor not for security, but because it is strategically valuable. The jump points connect 4 major trade routes. Control of that space means control of commerce across this entire sector." "You understand nothing," Thrain said, but his voice carried less certainty now. "I understand perfectly," Minji replied. "I also understand that you believe this will be easy. You look at humanity and see weakness. You see a species without claws or armor or ancient weapons. You see people who smile and laugh and cry openly. You think these are signs of fragility." She walked slowly forward until she stood at the edge of the human delegation's platform, as close to Thrain as protocol permitted. When she spoke again, her voice was gentle, almost kind. That made the words more chilling. "Let me tell you about humanity, Emperor Thrain. We come from a world that has tried to kill us since we climbed down from the trees. Predators hunted us. Diseases ravaged us. The very weather turned against us with floods and droughts and storms. We had no natural weapons, so we made them. We had no armor, so we crafted it. We were weak individually, so we learned to work together." Captain Lee stood perfectly still behind her, but his jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Minji continued, "For 200,000 years, humanity fought for survival. We fought the planet, we fought nature, and when we ran out of external enemies, we fought each other. Tribe against tribe, nation against nation, ideology against ideology. Every human military doctrine, every strategy, every tactic was purchased with human blood. We learned warfare from the most brutal teacher imaginable, ourselves. The chamber was absolutely silent now. Even the usual background noises of translation devices and breathing apparatus had stilled. We learned something else too, Minji said, her voice softening further. We learned what war costs. We learned about the children who never grow up, the families torn apart, the cities turned to ash, the futures burned away. We learned that victory and defeat often look the same when the fighting is done. So we learned to choose peace. We learned to talk before shooting. We learned to build instead of destroy. She took a breath. But make no mistake, Emperor Thrain. We learned peace after we mastered war. We choose diplomacy because we know the alternative. We smile because we have seen the darkness and decided to face the light instead. Our kindness is not weakness. It is a choice, a difficult choice we make every single day. Thrain's scales rippled with colors that indicated agitation in Valdrian psychology. You make speeches, pretty words, they mean nothing. Then let me speak plainly, Minji said. The Terran corridor is a line we will not cross. More importantly, it is a line we will not allow you to cross. We have tried to settle this peacefully. We have offered to discuss your security concerns through proper channels. We have suggested joint patrols, information sharing, mutual defense treaties. Every offer has been rejected. Because we do not negotiate with lesser species. Then you leave us no choice. Minji straightened. Ambassador, I am formally warning you and your empire. Do not move your fleets into the Terran corridor. Do not threaten our colonies. Do not test our resolve on this matter. Or what? Thrain's laugh returned, but it sounded forced. What will you do, little human? Will you cry at us? Will you write strongly worded protests? We will respond, Minji said simply. How we respond will depend on you. We are offering you one final chance to step back, to choose dialogue over aggression, to be remembered as an emperor who chose wisdom over pride. Wisdom? Thrain's voice rose to a roar. You dare speak to me of wisdom? The Valdrian Empire has stood for 1,000 years. We have conquered worlds you cannot imagine. We have broken species far stronger than yours. Yes, Minji agreed quietly. You have. And that is why this warning should matter. Because you have been strong for so long, you have forgotten what it means to face someone who will not bend. You have grown accustomed to fear and submission. You believe the entire galaxy works this way. She paused, letting the words settle. We have a saying on Earth, Emperor. There are old soldiers and bold soldiers, but very few bold soldiers. The Valdrian Empire is old. You have survived because you picked your battles carefully. You conquered species that could not truly resist. But you are about to make a mistake. You are about to step somewhere you should not step. I fear nothing from you, Thrain declared, but his 4 hands had curled into fists. I am not asking you to fear us, Minji said. I am asking you to think, really think, about what you are doing, about what comes next, about whether control of some trade routes is worth what this will cost. Mediator Vosh clicked his mandibles urgently. Perhaps we should table this discussion. Allow both parties time to reconsider their positions. There is nothing to reconsider, Thrain said. He turned to leave, his massive form moving toward the exit. The Valdrian Third Fleet is already moving toward the Terran corridor. In 30 days, that space will be ours. The humans may leave peacefully or they may leave in pieces. The choice is theirs. He stopped at the chamber doors and looked back at Minji. You should have accepted our generous offer of evacuation, little human. You should have thanked us for our mercy. Instead, you have chosen pride. Your people will suffer for your arrogance. Minji met his gaze steadily. No, Emperor. I have chosen to protect my people. I have given you every chance to avoid this. I have warned you clearly and explicitly. What happens next is your choice. Remember that. When your admirals ask you how this started, when your historians record these events, remember that you were warned. You stepped where you should not have stepped. Thrain left without another word. The massive doors sealed behind him with a hiss of pressurized air. The council chamber erupted in whispered conversations. Delegates leaned toward each other, antennae touching, tentacles intertwining in the various ways different species shared private thoughts. Some looked at Minji with pity, others with confusion, a few with something that might have been respect. Captain Lee stepped forward and spoke quietly in Korean. Ambassador, the Valdrian Third Fleet is moving. Admiral Kresh commands 500 warships. I know, Minji replied in the same language. Send the signal. Are you certain? We gave them every chance, Tae-hyun, every possible opportunity to choose another path. She looked out at the stars through the dome above. Now we show them why you should never corner a species that learned to fight before it learned to dream. Lee nodded and touched the comm device hidden in his collar. He spoke a single word, too quiet for the translation devices to catch. A code word that would travel faster than light to Earth, to the colonies, to hidden positions throughout human space. Mediator Vosh approached the human delegation platform. His ancient eyes studied Minji carefully. Ambassador Park, I have presided over this council for 600 years. I have seen many species face extinction. They do not smile like you smile. They do not show the calm you show. Either you are very foolish, or you know something the rest of us do not. I know my people, Minji said, and I know our history. We have been here before, Mediator, outmatched, outnumbered. Facing enemies who thought us weak, it never ends the way they expect. The Valdrians are not a minor power. They will not stop. No, Minji agreed. They won't. Not until they learn the lesson we tried to teach them peacefully. Some lessons can only be learned the hard way. She gathered her materials and prepared to leave. One more thing, Mediator Vosh. Please ensure this session was recorded completely. Every word, every warning. It is important that the galaxy understands we did everything possible to avoid what comes next. As Minji and Captain Lee walked through the corridors of Nexus Prime toward their shuttle, they passed other delegates. Some whispered, some stared. A Galth warrior, covered in scars from 100 battles, nodded respectfully as they passed. His species understood honor and courage, even when they thought it was misplaced. Inside their shuttle, Lee activated the privacy screens. The Third Fleet will reach the corridor in 15 days at current speed. Good, Minji said. She looked tired now, the weight of what she had set in motion showing in the lines around her eyes. That gives us time. Ambassador, may I ask a question? Of course. Did you mean what you said? About choosing peace because we mastered war? Minji was quiet for a long moment. Every word. Our ancestors fought wars that consumed continents. They built weapons that could end civilizations. They looked into the abyss of their own capacity for destruction and decided to step back. That took more courage than any battle. She looked at Lee. But they also understood something important. Peace only works when everyone chooses it. When someone chooses violence, you have to meet them on those terms, not because you want to, because you have to. The shuttle lifted off from Nexus Prime, beginning the long journey back to Earth. Behind them, the council chamber buzzed with speculation and fear. Ahead of them, 500 Valdrian warships moved through the dark between stars, confident in their strength, certain of their victory. They had been warned. They had not listened. Now they would learn what it meant to step where they should not have stepped. They would learn why the gentle species from the death world had smiled while delivering their warning. They would learn that humanity's greatest weapon was not their technology or their numbers. It was their memory of what they had done to themselves, and their absolute determination to never be on the receiving end of such treatment again. The countdown had begun. 30 days until the deadline. 15 days until the Valdrian fleet arrived. And somewhere in the darkness of space, humanity prepared to teach the galaxy's greatest empire a lesson in humility, restraint, and the terrible price of underestimating those who choose peace not from weakness, but from hard-won wisdom. Admiral Kresh stood on the command deck of the Valdrian dreadnought Imperial Fist. The flagship stretched 3 kilometers from bow to stern, bristling with weapons that could crack moons. Around it, 499 other warships moved in perfect formation through the black between stars. The Third Fleet represented overwhelming force, unstoppable power, the pride of the Valdrian military. Kresh was old for his species, nearly 200 years. His scales had faded from bright bronze to dull copper. His third and fourth arms showed the tremors of age, but his mind remained sharp, honed by a century of conquest. He had broken rebellions on 14 worlds. He had accepted the surrender of 23 species. He knew war in all its forms. "Status report," he commanded. "We will reach the outer boundary of the Terran corridor in 12 standard days," his tactical officer replied. "All ships report full readiness, weapons charged, shields at maximum. We are ready for any resistance." "Resistance," Kresh repeated. He pulled up the tactical display, studying the 3 human colony worlds, New Perth, New Busan, Nova Sol. Small populations, limited infrastructure. Their defense platforms were minimal, designed to deter pirates, not repel a military invasion. What resistance could they possibly offer? His second-in-command, a younger officer named Voth, stood nearby. "Sir, intelligence reports that the humans have been moving civilian transports to the colonies. It appears they are beginning evacuation procedures." "Of course they are," Kresh said. "They are not fools, desperate perhaps, stubborn certainly, but not completely stupid." He zoomed in on New Perth, studying the orbital patterns. "What is our latest count on human military assets in the region?" 17 warships, sir, destroyer class and smaller. They arrived 3 days ago and have taken up positions around New Perth. No dreadnoughts, no carriers, nothing that could seriously threaten even a single ship of our line." Kresh nodded. The numbers matched his expectations. "And their fleet movements elsewhere?" "No significant changes, sir. Their main battle fleet remains near Earth. The colonies on the outer rim show normal patrol patterns. There are no signs of military buildup." Something about that bothered Kresh, though he could not say exactly what. He had watched the recording of Ambassador Park's speech at the council. The human woman had not looked frightened. She had not begged or pleaded. She had warned them, calmly, clearly, as if she knew something he did not. But what could she know? Human technology was inferior to Valdrian in nearly every measurable way. Their ships were smaller, their weapons less powerful, their shields weaker. They had no superweapons, no secret fleets, no hidden alliances. Kresh's intelligence network was thorough. If the humans had something dangerous, he would know. "Maintain course," he ordered. "All ships stay in formation. We approach as planned." In the quantum-linked communication room, a message from Emperor Thrain waited. Kresh played it privately in his quarters. The Emperor's image filled the screen, his 4 arms gesturing grandly. "Admiral Kresh, the eyes of the Empire are upon you. Show these humans what happens when lesser species defy Valdrian authority. Make an example they will never forget. Make an example the entire galaxy will witness. The Terran corridor must fall within 3 days of your arrival. No mercy, no hesitation. The message ended. Kresh sat in silence for a long moment. 3 days. The Emperor wanted this done quickly, dramatically. A show of force to cow the rest of the galaxy. It made political sense. The other species were watching, waiting to see if the humans could stand against Valdrian might. They needed to see that resistance was futile, but something still bothered him. The human ambassador's final words echoed in his memory. "You stepped where you should not have stepped." What had she meant? Was it simple bravado? Desperate defiance in the face of overwhelming odds? Kresh pulled up files on human history. His intelligence officers had prepared extensive reports. He read through them now, looking for something, anything, that might explain his unease. The humans had fought wars among themselves for their entire history. The records were staggering. Millions dead in single conflicts. Entire cities destroyed. They had built weapons of terrible power and used them on each other. They had invented new ways to kill with each generation. But that was ancient history. The humans had not fought a major war among themselves in nearly 2 centuries. Since joining the galactic community, they had been peaceful, cooperative. They traded fairly, helped species in need, contributed to scientific research. They seemed to have left their violent past behind. Had they, though? Or had they simply lacked a reason to remember it? Kresh closed the files. He was overthinking this. The Emperor had given orders. The fleet was ready. In less than 2 weeks, the Terran corridor would belong to the Valdrian Empire. The humans would evacuate or submit. It would be over quickly. On New Perth, the largest of the human colonies, Governor Soo-Jin Kim stood in the emergency command center. The room bustled with activity as her staff coordinated the civilian evacuation. Transports arrived and departed in steady streams, carrying families to safety. "How many have we evacuated?" she asked. Her deputy, a tired-looking man named Chen, checked his data pad. 11 million so far. But, Governor, we have 29 million left. The Valdrians arrive in 12 days. Even working around the clock, we can only move maybe 8 million more before they get here. Then we move 8 million, Soo-Jin said firmly. Every life we save matters. What about those who remain? What about us? Soo-Jin looked out the window at New Perth City, stretching below. She had been governor here for 15 years. She had watched this city grow from a small settlement to a thriving metropolis. Schools, hospitals, parks. People had built lives here. They had planted trees that were just now reaching maturity. They had made this alien world into a home. "We stay," she said simply. "This is our world, our home. We were told to abandon it. We refuse." Chen looked worried. "Governor, the Valdrian fleet is 500 warships. We have 17. The defense platforms can't stop them. When they arrive, they will demand our surrender. If we refuse—" "I know what they will do," Soo-Jin interrupted. "I also know what humanity will do. Trust the plan, Chen. Trust that we have not been abandoned." Far from New Perth, in the deep black between stars, something moved. Sensor buoys registered brief anomalies and then went silent. Jump signatures appeared and disappeared. If anyone had been watching carefully, they might have noticed patterns. Ships entering dark space, cargo haulers changing course, civilian vessels with unusually heavy engine signatures. But the Valdrians were not watching carefully. They watched the human colonies, the obvious military assets, the expected responses. They did not watch the empty spaces. They did not look for the things that should not be there. On Earth, in a bunker deep beneath Geneva, the Human Defense Council met in emergency session. 12 people sat around a secure table. Generals, admirals, intelligence chiefs, the Prime Minister. They watched tactical displays showing the Valdrian fleet's approach. Fleet Admiral Ji Sung Park spoke first. He was Minji's uncle, though no one outside the family knew it. He had commanded the human fleet for 12 years. "The Valdrians are proceeding exactly as predicted. Arrogant, overconfident. They expect quick victory. Can we stop them? The Prime Minister asked. She was young for her position, only 45, but her eyes held steel. Stop them? No. Admiral Park smiled slightly. Defeat them? Yes, but not the way they expect to be fought. General Hai Jin Lee, commander of ground forces, leaned forward. The colonies are bait. The civilians we could not evacuate are at risk. Are we certain this is the right choice? The people who remain chose to stay, Admiral Park said. Governor Kim gave everyone the option to leave. 21 million chose to remain. They know the risks. They also know we will not abandon them. The ethics are complicated, the Prime Minister said softly. But the mathematics are clear. If we let the Valdrians take the corridor, they will not stop. Next, it will be our outer colonies. Then the mid-rim. Eventually Earth itself. We must stop them here. We must show the galaxy that humanity cannot be pushed. Intelligence Director Yoon spoke up. The Valdrians believe they know our capabilities. They have been monitoring us for decades, but they watch what we show them. They do not see what we hide. How long until our assets are in position? The Prime Minister asked. The EMP satellite network is complete, Yoon replied. 3,000 satellites spread across the corridor, invisible to standard sensors. When activated, they will generate a pulse field that will disable every electrical system in the target zone. And the Valdrians will be shielded against EMP weapons by next week, General Lee noted. Our intelligence says they are already retrofitting their fleet. Let them, Admiral Park said. The EMP is just the first lesson. The second lesson comes after. And if they do not learn? The Prime Minister asked. Then we teach a third lesson, the Admiral replied quietly. And a fourth, and as many as it takes. The Valdrians have forgotten what it means to fight a war. They have spent centuries crushing weaker opponents. They think war is about raw power. They are about to remember that it is about will, about determination, about being willing to pay the price for victory. The meeting continued for hours. Plans were reviewed, resources allocated, contingencies prepared. When it finally ended, the Prime Minister stood at the window looking out at the lights of Geneva. Admiral Park joined her. My niece did well at the council, he said quietly. She gave them every chance, the Prime Minister agreed. That matters. When this is over, when the historians analyze what happened, they will see that we tried peace first. We tried dialogue. We warned them clearly. And they ignored the warning. Yes, so now we teach them why that was a mistake. She turned to face him. Admiral, I am authorizing Operation Death World. Show the Valdrians what happens when you corner humanity. Back aboard the Imperial Fist, Admiral Kresh received another report. Sir, we have detected increased human transport activity in the corridor. It appears they are evacuating more aggressively. Good, Kresh said. Fewer civilians means less mess when we take control. Should we intercept the transports? We could capture them, use them as leverage. No, Kresh said firmly. We are conquerors, not pirates. Let them save their civilians. It makes our job easier. He paused. Besides, the Emperor wants this over quickly. We arrive, we demand surrender, we occupy, clean and simple. But even as he said it, that nagging doubt remained. Something was not right. The humans were too calm, too organized. Ambassador Park's warning echoed again in his mind. You stepped where you should not have stepped. In the crew quarters, Valdrian soldiers prepared for occupation duty. They cleaned their weapons and reviewed protocols for dealing with civilian populations. Most were young, recruited from conquered worlds, given the honor of serving the Empire. They had never faced real resistance. Every world they had occupied had surrendered quickly once they saw Valdrian power. Will the humans fight? A young soldier asked his squad leader. The older warrior laughed. Humans? They are soft, weak. They cry over small things. They form emotional attachments to everything. No, they will not fight. They will see our fleet, and they will run. But in the officers' mess, some of the veterans were less certain. They had read the human history files. They had seen what humans did to each other before they reached the stars. One old warrior, scarred from a dozen campaigns, spoke quietly to his companions. "I fought the Kresh when they tried to resist," he said. "They were warriors, proud, strong. They died bravely. I fought the Silithians. They used guerrilla tactics, hit and run. It took years to pacify them." He stared into his drink. "But I have never fought a species like the humans, a species that fought itself for thousands of years, that learned war from fighting its own kind." "You worry too much," another officer said. "They are weak. Everyone knows this." "Everyone knows they appear weak," the old warrior corrected. "That is not the same thing." The days counted down. 11, 10, 9. The Valdrian fleet drew closer. The human transports continued their evacuation. Millions fled to safety. Millions more remained, trusting in their government, trusting in their military, trusting in the plan they could not see but believed existed. On Nexus Prime, in the council chambers, delegates watched and waited. Some placed bets on how long the humans would resist. Most predicted less than a day. A few thought the humans might hold out for a week just to save face before surrendering. Mediator Vosh did not bet. He watched Ambassador Park, who had remained at Nexus Prime instead of returning to Earth. She spent her days in the human diplomatic suite, receiving reports, sending messages, appearing calm. Too calm. He requested a private meeting. She agreed. They met in a neutral observation room overlooking the station's main docking bay. Ships from 100 worlds came and went, bringing trade and travelers. "You should be on Earth," Vosh said. "If the Valdrians succeed, they may seek retribution against you personally." "The Valdrians will not succeed," Minji said simply. "You cannot know that." "I know my people." Vosh's compound eyes studied her. "What are you planning, Ambassador? I have presided over this council for 6 centuries. I have seen schemes and plots and desperate gambles. You do not have the look of someone gambling. You have the look of someone who has already won." Minji smiled slightly. "We have not won. The Valdrians still have choices. They can choose to withdraw. They can choose to negotiate. Right up until the moment they cross into the corridor, they can choose peace. But you do not think they will." "No, I do not. Pride blinds them. They cannot imagine losing to us. So they will cross the line. They will step where they should not step. And then—" She trailed off. "And then?" Vosh prompted. "And then they learn," Minji said quietly. "They learn what we tried to teach them with words. They learn why you should never underestimate a species that survived its own worst impulses. They learn that mercy offered is not the same as mercy earned." The days continued to count down. 8, 7, 6. The Valdrian fleet was close now. Close enough that long-range sensors could track individual ships. The humans continued evacuating. The 17 human warships remained in position around New Perth, tiny compared to the approaching armada. Admiral Kresh received his final intelligence update before entering the corridor. "Human fleet disposition unchanged, sir. Minimal defense platforms. No hidden forces detected. No allies arriving. They are alone." "Exactly as expected," Kresh said. He felt relief. His doubts had been unfounded. The humans were simply desperate, making a stand they could not win because pride demanded it. He understood pride. He respected it even. But pride did not stop dreadnoughts. "All ships," he transmitted across the fleet. "We enter the Terran corridor in 6 days. Prepare for occupation operations. Remember, we are liberating this space, not destroying it. Minimum civilian casualties. Focus on military targets. Show the galaxy that Valdrian strength comes with Valdrian honor. In the deep black beyond sensor range, the last pieces of humanity's plan moved into position. Ships that had traveled dark, running silent. Weapons that had been built in secret and hidden carefully. Technologies that intelligence services had missed or dismissed. And most importantly, soldiers and sailors who remembered what their ancestors had done and understood what needed to be done now. The countdown reached 5 days. 4, 3. The galaxy watched. The Valdrians advanced. The humans waited. And in the empty spaces between stars, in the places no one thought to look, humanity prepared to teach the Valdrian Empire a lesson it would never forget. The warning had been given. It had been ignored. Now came the consequences. Now came the moment when the gentle species from Earth showed the galaxy what they were truly capable of when pushed beyond the point of peace. Now came the proof that choosing non-violence from a position of strength is very different from accepting violence from a position of weakness. The Valdrians were about to learn this difference, the hard way. The Valdrian Third Fleet crossed into the Terran corridor exactly on schedule. 500 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation, their arrival precisely calculated to demonstrate overwhelming power. The fleet stretched across space like a wall of bronze and steel, weapons charged, shields glowing with barely contained energy. Admiral Kresh stood on the command deck of the Imperial Fist, watching the tactical displays light up with data. Status report. All ships accounted for, sir. Formation is optimal. We are detecting the 17 human warships at the edge of New Perth's gravity well. They are holding position. Any response to our arrival? Nothing yet, sir. Wait. The tactical officer leaned forward, studying her console. We are receiving a transmission, audio only. It is from the human flagship. Play it, Kresh ordered. A male voice filled the command deck. The words were in Valdrian, translated by human software with perfect accuracy. Admiral Kresh, this is Captain Tae-Hyun Lee, commanding the Human Defense Force in this sector. You have entered sovereign human territory without permission. This is a violation of galactic law. I am authorized to request that you withdraw immediately. Kresh almost laughed. Request. Such a polite word for a demand backed by 17 tiny ships against 500 dreadnoughts. Captain Lee, this is Admiral Kresh of the Valdrian Imperial Fleet. The Terran corridor has been claimed by the Valdrian Empire. Your forces are outmatched and outnumbered. Stand down and prepare to receive instructions for orderly withdrawal. There was a pause. Then Captain Lee spoke again, his voice still calm and professional. Admiral, I must inform you that you were warned about this action. Ambassador Park made our position clear at the Council. You have crossed a line that should not have been crossed. Your ambassador made threats she cannot back up, Kresh replied. This is your final warning, Captain. Withdraw your ships, or they will be destroyed. Admiral, Lee said, and now there was something in his voice, not fear, not anger, something else, almost sadness. You were given every chance. Remember that in the days to come. You were warned. What happens next is your responsibility. The transmission ended. Kresh turned to his tactical officer. Begin occupation procedures. Move the first wave toward New Perth. If the human ships interfere, disable them. I want prisoners, not debris. The Valdrian fleet began its advance. The first wave, 100 ships, broke formation and moved toward the colony world. The human ships did not move. They held their position, 17 specks against 100 giants. They are not running, Voth observed. Should we be concerned? They are being stubborn, Kresh said. They will move when they see we are serious. No one is that foolish. But the human ships did not move. They held their ground as the Valdrian wave approached. Weapon locks activated. Targeting systems painted each human vessel. The range closed. 5,000 kilometers. 4,000. 3,000. Sir, the human ships are still not moving, the tactical officer reported. They are charging weapons. 17 ships against 100? Kresh shook his head. They are committing suicide. All ships. Disable their engines only. I want them alive to answer questions about why they threw their lives away. The range dropped to 2,000 kilometers. Both sides had weapons locked. The tension on the command deck was thick enough to cut. Kresh prepared to give the order to fire. And then every screen on the Imperial Fist went dark. For a moment, there was absolute silence. Then the emergency lighting kicked in, bathing the command deck in red. Consoles flickered, some rebooted, others remained dead. Confused shouts filled the air as officers tried to understand what happened. "Report!" Kresh roared. "What just happened?" I do not know, sir," the tactical officer said, her voice shaking. "All systems just shut down. Main power, backup power, everything. We are running on emergency batteries only." "That is impossible. Our ships are shielded against every known weapon. EMP, radiation, gravitic pulse, everything." "I know, sir, but—" The tactical officer tried her console again. Nothing. "Sir, I am getting reports from other ships. The entire first wave is dead in space. No power, no engines, no weapons, no communications except short-range emergency channels." Kresh felt ice form in his stomach. The humans did this? How? He had no answer. Around New Perth, 100 Valdrian warships drifted powerless in space. Life support was running on emergency batteries. Nothing else worked. The mighty dreadnoughts, capable of cracking planets, had been reduced to metal coffins drifting in the black. And the 17 human ships still held their position, weapons powered, engines running perfectly. Captain Lee's voice came over the emergency channel. "Admiral Kresh, this is Captain Lee. Your ships are disabled, but your crews are safe. Life support will continue to function on emergency power for approximately 72 hours. I am transmitting coordinates where you can send rescue vessels. Do not send more warships into this region. Do not test us further." "What did you do?" Kresh demanded. "What weapon is this?" "No weapon, Admiral. A defense system, one you were unaware we possessed. Your ships can be restored to full function, but only after they are towed outside the Terran corridor. Consider this a demonstration, a gentle one. We could have destroyed you. We chose not to. Learn from this." The transmission ended. Kresh stood in the red emergency lighting, his 4 hands clenched into fists. 100 ships. 100. Disabled without firing a shot. How was this possible? His science officer finally got his console working. "Sir, I am detecting massive EM signatures throughout the system. Hundreds of them. No, thousands. They are satellites. Very small. Positioned in a grid pattern. When we entered the grid, they activated simultaneously." "EMP satellites," Kresh said. "But our ships are shielded against EMP weapons. We upgraded those defenses decades ago." "These are not standard EMP weapons, sir," the science officer replied, studying the data. "The pulse pattern is different. Modulated. It bypasses our shielding by operating on frequencies we did not anticipate. And the grid coverage is total. Every ship in the affected zone was hit from multiple angles simultaneously." Kresh wanted to rage. He wanted to order the rest of his fleet forward, to glass New Perth from orbit, to show these humans what real power looked like. But he was a military professional. He understood what had just happened. The humans had prepared this battlefield. They had anticipated the Valdrian approach. They had built a trap and waited patiently for the Valdrians to walk into it. "Get me a secure line to Emperor Thrain," he ordered. "He needs to know about this." It took 6 hours to establish communication with the Valdrian homeworld using jury-rigged systems. When the connection was made, Emperor Thrain's rage could be felt across light years. "You allowed 100 ships to be disabled? By humans? By barely civilized primitives?" Your Majesty, they prepared this system specifically to counter our approach. The EMP satellite grid is sophisticated, more advanced than our intelligence suggested they were capable of building. Excuses, Thrain roared. I do not accept excuses. You have 400 ships still operational. Use them. Destroy those satellites and take that world. Your Majesty, I advise caution. We do not know what other defenses they have prepared. This was clearly a warning, not a full attack. They could have destroyed the disabled ships. They chose not to. Because they are weak. Because they lack the will to finish what they start. Thrain's image leaned forward. You have your orders, Admiral. Take the corridor. Use whatever force is necessary. Show no mercy. The transmission ended. Kresh stood in silence for a long moment. Then he turned to Voth. Prepare the remaining fleet. We advance in 4 hours. Science Division, analyze those satellites. Find a way to disable them or work around them. Tactical, plot a new approach vector that minimizes our time in the affected zone. Sir, Voth said quietly, perhaps we should reconsider. The humans warned us. They have proven they can hurt us. Maybe we should negotiate. We cannot negotiate, Kresh said tiredly. The Emperor has given direct orders. We advance, or we are relieved of command and court-martialed for cowardice. Those are our only options. Across the galaxy, news of the Valdrian defeat spread like wildfire. 100 ships, disabled without a shot fired. Species that had considered humanity weak suddenly reconsidered. Species that had thought the Valdrians invincible suddenly wondered. On Nexus Prime, the council chamber was in chaos. Delegates demanded explanations. Some wanted sanctions against humanity for using banned weapons. Others wanted sanctions against the Valdrians for starting the conflict. Mediator Vosh called for calm, but even his authority was tested. Ambassador Minji Park sat calmly in the human delegation area, watching the chaos. Other ambassadors approached her with questions. She answered politely but firmly. The Terran corridor is human territory. We defended it. The Valdrian crews are alive and unharmed. Rescue operations are already underway. We used the minimum force necessary to protect our people. But the EMP satellites, a delegate from the Sistine Collective said, we did not know humans had such technology. You did not know because we did not tell you, Minji replied simply. We are not required to announce our defensive capabilities, just as the Valdrians do not announce theirs. A Goth warrior pushed forward. His species respected strength above all else. You beat them, but you let them live. Why? You could have destroyed those ships, shown real dominance. Because we are not trying to dominate, Minji said. We are trying to protect our territory. There is a difference. We do not seek to conquer the Valdrians. We seek to make them understand that we will not be conquered. They will come again, the Galth said. With more ships, better shielding. They will not make the same mistake twice. No, Minji agreed. They will make different mistakes, and we will respond accordingly. She excused herself and returned to the human diplomatic suite. Captain Lee was there, having arrived via emergency shuttle. He looked exhausted, but satisfied. The EMP grid worked perfectly, he reported. All 100 Valdrian ships are disabled. Their crews are alive. We are already helping coordinate rescue operations. And the rest of the fleet? Admiral Kresh is regrouping. Intelligence suggests he is under orders to continue the attack. They will come again, probably within days. They will have adapted to the EMP grid. As we knew they would, Minji said. She pulled up tactical displays. Phase 1 is complete. We demonstrated capability and restraint. We gave them another chance to reconsider. They are not reconsidering. No, pride is a terrible thing, Taehyun. It makes smart people do stupid things. She looked at the display showing the Valdrian fleet. How is Operation Deathworld progressing? All assets in position. The fleet is ready. Ground forces are prepared. We can begin Phase 2 on your signal. Minji was quiet for a moment. 100 ships, Taehyun. We disabled 100 ships and killed no one. That matters. When this is over, when historians look back, they will see we tried everything possible to avoid bloodshed. And when the next 100 ships come, then they learn the next lesson, Minji said softly. Then they learn what happens when you push humanity past the point of mercy. Then they learn why our ancestors feared each other for thousands of years. Then they learn what a death world species really is. Back at New Perth, Governor Soo-Jin Kim watched the Valdrian rescue operations from her command center. The disabled ships drifted in space, helpless. Human ships moved among them, providing assistance, offering medical aid, helping with evacuation procedures. The Valdrians accepted grudgingly, their pride wounded but their survival instinct strong. "Governor, we are receiving thanks from some of the Valdrian crew members," her communications officer reported. "They expected to be killed. They cannot understand why we are helping them." "Because we are not monsters," Soo-Jin said. "We fight when we must. We kill when we have no choice. But we do not murder helpless people. That is not who we are. Even though they came to conquer us, especially because they came to conquer us, we must show them the difference between their way and ours. We must demonstrate that strength and cruelty are not the same thing." On the Imperial Fist, now running on restored backup power, Admiral Kresh watched human ships moving among his disabled fleet. They were small, nimble vessels, designed for rescue operations. They asked permission before boarding Valdrian ships. They provided food, water, medicine. They treated wounded Valdrian soldiers with the same care they would treat their own. It made no sense to Kresh. In every war he had fought, the losers were subjugated, humiliated, destroyed, or enslaved. Mercy was a luxury extended only when the victor had nothing to fear. But the humans clearly feared the Valdrian fleet. They were outnumbered, outgunned. Yet they showed mercy anyway. Why? The question bothered him more than the defeat. He had lost battles before. He understood military setbacks. But he had never encountered an enemy that defeated you and then helped you. It violated every principle of warfare he had learned in 200 years. His science officer approached with new data. "Sir, we have analyzed the EMP satellites. We can shield against them now. It will take approximately 60 hours to retrofit the fleet, but it can be done." "Good," Kresh said. "Inform the Emperor. We will attack again in 3 days. Sir, if I may ask, should we attack again? The humans have proven they can hurt us. They have also proven they do not wish to kill us. Perhaps there is room for negotiation." Kresh wanted to agree. Every tactical bone in his body said to withdraw, regroup, reconsider. But he had his orders. The Emperor demanded victory. The Empire's reputation required it. The entire galaxy was watching to see if the mighty Valdrians could be stopped by mere humans. "We attack," Kresh said firmly. "Prepare the fleet." In the darkness between the stars, human ships moved silently. They were not the rescue vessels helping the disabled Valdrian fleet. They were warships, destroyers, frigates, cruisers, ships that had been built in secret and hidden carefully. Ships that carried weapons the Valdrians had never seen. Ships crewed by men and women who had studied every battle their species had ever fought and learned from all of them. Fleet Admiral Ji-Sung Park stood aboard the human carrier Indomitable, watching the tactical displays. His fleet numbered only 60 ships. Against the Valdrian 400, it should have been laughable. But numbers were not everything. The humans had advantages the Valdrians did not understand yet. They had been underestimated. They had been dismissed. They had been given time to prepare while the Valdrians advanced confidently. And now, when the Valdrians came again, they would face not mercy, but war. Real war. The kind of war humanity had perfected over millennia of fighting itself. "All ships," Admiral Park transmitted. The Valdrians will attack again in approximately 3 days. They will have adapted to the EMP grid. They will be confident. Let them be confident. Let them think they have learned the lesson. And then we show them that was only the first lesson. The real education begins when they cross the line again. The countdown had restarted. 3 days until the Valdrians attacked. 3 days until humanity stopped being gentle. 3 days until the galaxy learned why you should never, ever corner a species from a death world. 3 days until the Valdrian Empire's greatest mistake became clear. They had been warned. They had been shown mercy. They had been given every opportunity to step back. And they were about to learn that humanity's greatest act of kindness was the warning they had ignored. Admiral Kresh's fleet entered the Terran corridor for the second time with new confidence. 60 hours of retrofit work had shielded every ship against the EMP satellite grid. Enhanced sensors mapped the satellite positions. Countermeasures were ready. The Valdrians would not be caught by the same trick twice. All ships report full readiness, Voth announced. EMP shielding at maximum. We are prepared for anything they used before. Excellent, Kresh said. He studied the tactical display. The 17 human ships still held position around New Perth. Either reinforcements had not arrived, or the humans were hiding them somewhere. His enhanced sensors should detect hidden ships, but he had learned not to assume anything with these humans. Advance in battle formation, Kresh ordered. All ships stay together. Overlapping shields. Coordinated fire patterns. If they have more surprises, we respond as one unit. The Valdrian fleet moved forward. 400 ships in tight formation, a wall of bronze scales and heavy armor. They passed the first satellite grid. Nothing happened. Passed the second. Still nothing. The EMP satellites were still there, but the new shielding worked perfectly. We are approaching weapons range of the human defense fleet, the tactical officer reported. They are not moving. Kresh leaned forward. The 17 human ships held their ground, just as before. Did they have another trick? Or were they simply making a final stand, knowing it was hopeless? Sir, we are detecting weapons fire, the tactical officer said suddenly. But not from the human ships, from, I do not know where exactly. Projectiles. Small. Hundreds of them. From where? Kresh demanded. Show me. The display updated. Red icons appeared throughout the space around the Valdrian fleet. Not from the human ships. Not from the satellites. From the asteroids. From the debris fields. From empty space that turned out to not be empty at all. Mines, the science officer said. Thousands of them. Stealth-coded. They were hiding in the natural clutter of the system. When we passed the threshold, they activated. The mines were not explosive. They were kinetic. Simple metal slugs accelerated to incredible speeds by magnetic coils. Against shields, they should have been harmless. But there were so many of them. Thousands, striking the fleet from every angle. The overlapping shields held, but the constant impacts drained power reserves. Warning lights began flashing across multiple ships. Divert power from non-essential systems to shields, Kresh ordered. Maintain formation. Then the human ships attacked. They did not charge forward in a glorious assault. They did not announce themselves with demands or challenges. They simply opened fire from maximum range with weapons that should not have had the power to reach across such distances. Rails guns. Magnetically accelerated projectiles traveling at 3% of light speed. The Valdrian shields could stop them, but each impact sent shock waves through the hull. And the human ships fired in coordinated patterns, all 17 focusing on single targets, overwhelming shields through concentrated fire. The Valdrian dreadnought Iron Faith was the first to fall. Its shields collapsed under sustained bombardment. Before they could restore power, a railgun slug punched through its armor and detonated the main reactor. The ship broke apart in a bloom of fire that lit up the darkness. "Return fire!" Kresh roared. "All ships! Target those human vessels!" The Valdrian fleet unleashed its weapons. Energy beams that could boil oceans, plasma cannons that could melt mountains, missiles that could crack continents. The firepower directed at the 17 human ships would have destroyed a small moon, but the human ships were not there when the weapons arrived. They had already moved, not in straight lines but in unpredictable patterns, zigzagging, looping, using the gravity wells of asteroids to slingshot in directions that should have been impossible. The Valdrian targeting computers, designed for honorable ship-to-ship combat, could not track the chaotic human movements. "How are they moving like that?" Voth demanded. "Those acceleration patterns should tear their ships apart." "Inertial dampening," the science officer said. "Far more advanced than our intelligence suggested they possessed. Their ships can handle maneuvers that would kill our crews." Another Valdrian ship exploded, then another. The human ships wove through the Valdrian formation like sharks through a school of fish. They fired, moved, fired again from a different angle. They used debris as cover. They used the Valdrian ships themselves as shields, forcing the fleet to hold fire or risk hitting their own vessels. "This is not how warfare works," Kresh shouted. "They are not fighting with honor. They are not engaging properly." "They are winning," Voth said quietly. Then something new appeared on the sensors. More human ships. Not 17, 60. They dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system and immediately began their attack run. "Where did they come from?" Kresh demanded. "We had no intelligence about a fleet that size." "They must have been hiding in dark space," the tactical officer said, "running silent, waiting for us to commit." The new human fleet did not look like the standard ships in the Galactic database. These were leaner, meaner, built for speed and firepower rather than comfort or prestige. They moved in perfect coordination, like fingers on a single hand. And they fought dirty. They targeted engines, not command decks. They disabled ships rather than destroying them when possible. But when destruction was necessary, they were surgical about it. Reactor cores, life support nexus points, shield generators. They knew exactly where to hit to cause maximum damage with minimum firepower. The Valdrian fleet began to break formation. Some ships tried to retreat. Others pushed forward aggressively. The coordinated defense Kresh had planned fell apart as individual commanders made individual decisions based on individual fear. "Reform," Kresh ordered. "All ships, reform on the flagship, maintain discipline." But it was too late. The humans had split his fleet. Now they attacked the isolated groups separately, concentrating force against weakness. It was textbook military doctrine, divide and conquer. Humanity had written those textbooks with 10,000 years of war. On the human carrier Indomitable, Fleet Admiral Ji-Sung Park watched the battle unfold with professional detachment. His tactical officers called out targets. His communication officers coordinated the fleet. His Marines prepared for boarding actions if necessary. "The Valdrians are breaking," his second-in-command reported. 17 enemy ships destroyed, 43 disabled. The rest are in disarray. "Do not let up," Admiral Park ordered. "Maintain pressure. Force them to make mistakes." A young officer looked uncomfortable. "Sir, some of the disabled ships are broadcasting surrender signals." "Accept all surrenders," Park said immediately. "Transmit coordinates for them to drift to safe zones. Any ship that surrenders is off limits. Make that clear to all our vessels." "Yes, sir." This was the balance humanity had learned. Fight hard enough to win. Fight smart enough to minimize casualties. But never fight so brutally that surrender becomes impossible. Always leave your enemy a way out. Otherwise, they fight to the last ship, to the last person, and everyone loses. The battle continued for 6 more hours. The Valdrian fleet, which had entered the corridor with such confidence, was systematically dismantled. Not through brute force, not through overwhelming firepower, through skill, through tactics, through the application of lessons learned in 10,000 years of humans fighting humans. When it finally ended, the Valdrian Third Fleet had lost 123 ships destroyed. Another 97 disabled or captured. The remaining 180 had retreated back across the corridor boundary. Their formations shattered, their confidence destroyed. The human fleet had lost 4 ships, 4 out of 60. Even Admiral Park was impressed by that ratio. On the Imperial Fist, Admiral Kresh stood amid sparking consoles and injured crew members. His ship had been hit 17 times. Shields were at 15%. Main weapons were offline. They had survived only because the humans had focused on other targets. "Get me a line to Emperor Thrain," Kresh said quietly. "I need to report our setback." "Sir," Voth said carefully, "this is not a setback. This is a disaster. We cannot continue. The humans have proven they can defeat us. We need to negotiate. We need to end this before more lives are lost. The Emperor will not accept defeat from humans." "Then the Emperor is a fool," Voth said, and immediately looked shocked by his own words. Speaking such treason could mean execution, but Kresh did not reprimand him, because Voth was right. This was no longer about the Terran corridor. This was about pride, and pride was getting soldiers killed. The transmission to the Valdrian homeworld took hours to establish. When Emperor Thrain's image appeared, his rage was transcendent. "You lost? To humans? How is this possible?" "Your Majesty, they are not what we thought. Their technology is more advanced than our intelligence suggested. Their tactics are unlike anything we have encountered. They fight as if they have been fighting wars for their entire existence. They have been in space for 80 years. "No, Your Majesty," Kresh said wearily. "They have been fighting each other for thousands of years before that. Every strategy they use, every tactic, was learned fighting themselves. They are not a peaceful species pretending to be warriors. They are warriors pretending to be peaceful." Thrain was silent for a long moment. "What are our options? We can withdraw and sue for peace, or we can commit the home fleet, bring every ship we have, overwhelm them through sheer numbers, and risk the entire empire on one battle. Those are our only options, Your Majesty. The Third Fleet cannot win this fight. The humans are too skilled, too prepared, too determined." Thrain's image flickered. "I will consider this. Stand by for orders." The transmission ended. Kresh sat in his command chair, feeling every one of his 200 years. He had been a warrior all his life. He had won great victories, earned great honors, and now he was being beaten by a species the galaxy considered weak. But they were not weak. That was the mistake everyone made. Weakness and kindness are not the same thing. The humans had shown kindness when they disabled the first wave. They had shown mercy when they helped the wounded. They had shown restraint when they accepted surrenders. But they had also shown skill, determination, a willingness to fight as hard and as smart as necessary to protect what was theirs. And that, Kresh realized, was far more dangerous than simple cruelty. On Nexus Prime, the council chamber was in stunned silence. The news had reached them. The mighty Valdrian Third Fleet defeated by humans. Species that had dismissed humanity as insignificant now scrambled to reconsider their positions. Species that had feared the Valdrians wondered if the balance of power was shifting. Ambassador Min-Ji Park sat quietly in the human delegation area. Other delegates stared at her with new eyes, some with fear, some with respect. A few with calculation, already thinking about how this changed the political landscape. Mediator Vosh approached her. "Ambassador Park, I must confess I underestimated your species. We all did." "We counted on that," Min-Ji said simply. "We are not warriors by nature, Mediator Vosh. We are builders, explorers, dreamers. But when forced to fight, we remember what our ancestors learned. We remember what works. And what now? The Valdrians will not surrender easily. Their pride will not allow it. Then we must give them a way to surrender with honor, Minji said. We must show them that accepting peace is not the same as accepting defeat. That wisdom is stronger than pride. How do you propose to do that? Minji smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. By making it very, very clear what happens if they choose to continue. By demonstrating that what they have seen so far is humanity being gentle. By showing them what we are capable of when gentleness fails. You would attack their homeworld? We would remind them that we could attack their homeworld, Minji corrected. There is a difference. We do not seek to conquer the Valdrians. We seek to ensure they never try to conquer us again. Back in the Terran corridor, Governor Sujin Kim watched the human fleet move among the disabled Valdrian ships, offering assistance, accepting surrenders, treating wounded. The humans had won a great victory, but they did not celebrate. They did not gloat. They simply did what needed to be done. Governor, her deputy Chen said, the civilian evacuation is complete. All who wanted to leave have left. 21 million chose to stay. And they were right to stay, Sujin said. This is our home. We defended it. We will continue to defend it. Do you think the Valdrians will come back? I do not know. That depends on their emperor, on their pride, on whether they can accept that they made a mistake. She looked out at the stars. But if they do come back, we will be ready. And next time, we may not be so gentle. In deep space, Fleet Admiral Park received a coded transmission from Earth. He read it carefully, then smiled. Prepare for Phase 3, he ordered. If the Valdrians decide to escalate, we show them what escalation really means. We show them why you should never, ever challenge a species from a death world to a war of determination. His officers moved to obey. The human fleet had won 2 battles, but everyone understood that the war might not be over. The Valdrians had to decide, accept the loss and negotiate peace, or commit everything they had to one final desperate assault. On the Valdrian homeworld, Emperor Thrain stood in his palace, looking out at the capital city. Millions of his people lived there, billions across the empire, all depending on him to make the right choice. Pride demanded he fight, honor demanded he avenge the defeat. But wisdom whispered that sometimes the brave choice is knowing when to stop. The humans had beaten his fleet. They had done it without excessive cruelty. They had shown they could win without destroying. That spoke to capability held in reserve. What would happen if he sent the home fleet and lost? What would happen to his people? To the Empire? He had called the humans weak. He had dismissed their warnings. He had believed his own propaganda about Valdrian superiority. And he had been wrong, catastrophically wrong. The question now was whether he would compound that mistake with an even bigger one, whether he would risk everything on pride, or whether he would prove he was worthy of being emperor by choosing the harder path of accepting reality. The decision would come soon, and the entire galaxy waited to see what the Valdrian Empire would do next. Would they double down on their mistake, or would they finally understand the lesson humanity had been trying to teach them from the beginning? The answer would determine whether this conflict ended in peace, or whether humanity would be forced to show the galaxy just how terrifying a gentle species can be when you push them past the point of mercy. Emperor Thrain stood in the war room of the Imperial Palace, surrounded by his generals and admirals. Holographic displays showed the tactical situation. The Third Fleet, shattered. The Terran corridor, still in human hands. And most galling of all, the entire galaxy watching to see what the mighty Valdrian Empire would do after being humiliated by humans. The home fleet is ready, Admiral Vorn reported. He was younger than Kresh, more aggressive, more certain. 2,000 ships, every vessel the Empire possesses. We have analyzed the human tactics. We have adapted. We will not make the same mistakes. 2,000 ships, Thrain repeated. Against 60 human vessels? They may have more hidden, Vorn acknowledged. But even if they have twice that number, we will overwhelm them through sheer mass. The humans cannot disable 2,000 ships, cannot outmaneuver 2,000 ships, cannot hope to win against 2,000 ships. General Thrace, commander of the ground forces, stepped forward. Your Majesty, I must counsel caution. We lost 220 ships to 60 human vessels. If we commit our entire fleet and lose, we leave the Empire defenseless. Every species we have conquered will see their chance for rebellion. We will not lose, Vorn said confidently. The humans won through tricks, ambushes, unconventional tactics, but raw numbers overcome any tactic. This is military law. Is it? Thrace countered. The humans have been fighting wars since before we left our home planet. Every battle they win teaches us they understand warfare better than we thought. Perhaps there are military laws we do not know, laws they learned in blood. Thrain raised a hand for silence. What does Admiral Kresh say? He fought them. He knows them. A holographic image of Kresh appeared. The old admiral looked tired, defeated. Your Majesty, I have fought many enemies in my 200 years. I have never fought one like the humans. They do not fight for glory. They fight to win. Every move calculated, every weapon used efficiently. They waste nothing, including mercy. Mercy is weakness, Vorn scoffed. No, Kresh said firmly. That is where you are wrong. That is where I was wrong. Mercy from a position of strength is the most dangerous thing an enemy can show you. It means they could have killed you and chose not to. It means they are holding back. It means you have not yet seen their full capability. Thrain leaned forward. You think they have more? That what we have seen is not their best? I am certain of it, Your Majesty. They disabled the first wave without firing a shot. They defeated the second wave with minimal casualties to themselves. Each time they escalated only as much as needed. They are controlling this conflict, measuring their response, showing us piece by piece what they can do. Then we force them to show everything, Vorn declared. We commit the home fleet. We make them use everything they have, and when we see their full capability, we will still have the numbers to crush them. Or, Kresh said quietly, we discover their full capability is more than we can handle, and we lose everything. Thrain stood and walked to the window overlooking the capital. His city, his people, his responsibility. Pride demanded he avenge the defeats. Honor demanded he show strength. But wisdom, that small, quiet voice he had ignored for so long, whispered something different. What would the humans accept, he asked, if we were to negotiate? What would they demand? His advisors fell silent. Negotiation had not been discussed. The Valdrian Empire did not negotiate with lesser species. They dictated terms to the defeated. I will find out, Thrain said. Prepare the home fleet, but do not launch. I will speak to the humans first. One conversation. One chance to resolve this without more bloodshed. Your Majesty, Vorn protested, this is weakness. The Empire will see this as surrender. The Empire will see this as an emperor who values the lives of his people more than his pride, Thrain said. Get me a line to Ambassador Park. The communication was established within the hour. Ambassador Minji Park appeared on the holographic display, sitting calmly in her office on Nexus Prime. She looked small, fragile, human. But Thrain no longer mistook that for weakness. Emperor Thrain, she said politely, I am honored by this communication. Ambassador Park, I will be direct. What would it take for humanity to agree to peace? What are your terms? Minji studied him for a moment. Our terms are simple, Your Majesty. Recognize the Terran Corridor as sovereign human territory. Agree to never send military forces into that space without our explicit permission. compensate the families of the soldiers who died in the conflict, and issue a public acknowledgement that the Valdrian Empire overstepped its authority. You ask me to admit defeat publicly? To humiliate the Empire before the entire galaxy? I ask you to admit reality publicly, Minji corrected. You attacked sovereign territory. You lost. Acknowledging this is not humiliation. It is honesty, and it would earn far more respect than continued aggression. And if I refuse? If I send the home fleet? Minji's expression did not change, but something in her eyes hardened. Then we will defeat the home fleet, and then we will have a very different conversation. One where humanity dictates terms instead of negotiating them. You are certain you can defeat 2,000 ships? We are certain we will do what is necessary to protect our people, Minji said. Your Majesty, I do not wish to see more Valdrian soldiers die. I do not wish to escalate this conflict further, but I will if you force my hand. The choice is yours. Thrain was silent for a long moment. You speak with great confidence for someone so outnumbered. I speak with the confidence of someone whose species has been outnumbered many times before and survived. We are very good at surviving, Your Majesty. It is one of our specialties. Show me, Thrain said suddenly. Show me what you would do if I sent the home fleet. Convince me that you have the capability you claim. Minji smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. Very well. Captain Lee? Captain Tae-hyun Lee appeared on the screen next to Minji. He nodded once to the Emperor, then spoke into a communication device. Authorization code. Death World Final. Execute demonstration. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then Thrain's communication officer burst into the room, his scales pale with fear. Your Majesty! The orbital defense platforms around the homeworld. They are offline. All of them. Every single platform just shut down simultaneously. Thrain felt his blood run cold. What? On the screen, Minji spoke calmly. Your orbital defenses are controlled by quantum-linked computers. Very sophisticated, very secure. Or so you thought. We have been inside your defense network for 6 months, Your Majesty. We can disable them whenever we choose. Impossible, Thrain whispered. Not impossible. Difficult, yes, but humanity has been waging cyber warfare against itself for centuries. We are very, very good at it. She paused. The defenses will come back online in 60 seconds. We are not attacking. We are demonstrating, showing you what we could do if we wanted to. Exactly 60 seconds later, the communication officer nodded. Defenses restored, Your Majesty. They are back online. But that is not all, Minji continued. Captain Lee? Lee touched his device again. Moments later, another officer ran into the room. Your Majesty, there are ships, human ships, in the outer system. They just appeared. 50 vessels. How did they get past our sensors? On the display, Minji explained. Stealth technology. We have been improving it for decades. Those 50 ships have been in your system for 3 days. You did not see them because we did not want you to see them. They could have attacked your homeworld at any time. They chose not to. Because we do not want war, Your Majesty. We want peace. Thrain felt the weight of his empire pressing down on him. His capital was defenseless. Human ships were in his home system. His defense network was compromised. Everything he thought was secure was an illusion. You could have destroyed us, he said quietly. Yes, Minji agreed. We could have disabled your orbital defenses, sent our ships to your capital, demanded your surrender. We could have done to you what you planned to do to us, but we did not. Do you know why? Why? Because we remember what it is like to be destroyed. Our ancestors did it to each other for thousands of years. Cities burned, civilizations fell, millions died. We remember the pain, the loss, the waste. We decided we would never inflict that pain if we could avoid it. We would offer mercy, give chances, seek peace first. She leaned forward. But do not mistake our mercy for weakness, Your Majesty. We offered you peace. You refused. We warned you. You ignored us. We disabled your fleet. You plan to come again. We have shown you we can reach your homeworld. If you come again, we will not be so gentle. Not because we want to hurt you, but because you will leave us no choice." Thrain looked around the war room. His generals and admirals stood in shocked silence. Everything had changed in the last 5 minutes. The balance of power they thought they understood was an illusion. The humans were not weak. They were not unprepared. They had been ready for this from the beginning. "What guarantee do I have that you will not attack us anyway?" Thrain asked. "If you have this capability, what stops you from conquering us?" "The same thing that has stopped us from conquering each other for 200 years, Minji said. "Choice. We choose peace. We choose cooperation. We choose to build instead of destroy. Not because we cannot destroy, because we will not. That is the difference between us, Your Majesty. You conquer because you can. We do not conquer even though we can." She stood. "I will give you one standard day to decide. Accept our terms, and we have peace. Reject them and send your home fleet, and we will show you what humanity really is when pushed past mercy. We will show you what 10,000 years of warfare taught us. We will show you why species from death worlds should not be underestimated. And if I accept, if I agree to your terms, then we begin again. With honesty this time, with respect. The Valdrian Empire remains strong. You lose only what you tried to take unjustly. The galaxy sees that you are wise enough to admit mistakes. That is not weakness. That is leadership." The transmission ended. Thrain stood in silence for a long time. His advisors waited, unsure what to say. The arrogant certainty that had filled the room an hour ago was gone, replaced by the cold reality of the situation. "Admiral Vorn," Thrain said finally, "you claimed the humans won through tricks, through unconventional tactics. You were wrong. They won because they are better at this than we are. They have been fighting longer, thinking deeper, preparing more carefully. Your Majesty, we can still—" "No," Thrain interrupted. "We cannot. They have us beaten, completely. They could destroy our capital and we could not stop them. They have infiltrated our defense network. They have ships in our system we cannot detect. If we fight them, we will lose. Perhaps slowly, perhaps at great cost to them, but we will lose." He turned to face his assembled command staff. "I became emperor to protect our people, to ensure the empire's prosperity and security. I have failed at this. I let pride blind me to reality. I attacked a species I did not understand. I ignored warnings from someone wiser than myself, and I have nearly destroyed everything our empire built over 1,000 years. "You cannot surrender to humans," General Thrace said. "The other species will revolt. The empire will fracture." "Then it fractures," Thrain said tiredly. "Better that than extinction. Contact Ambassador Park. Tell her we accept her terms. All of them. The Terran corridor is recognized as human territory. We will compensate the families of the fallen, and I will make a public statement acknowledging our error." The war room erupted in protests. Thrain silenced them with a gesture. "Enough. I am emperor. I make this decision, and I make it because it is right. We were wrong. We attacked peaceful neighbors without cause. We ignored their warnings. We brought this on ourselves. Now we accept the consequences with whatever dignity we have left." On Nexus Prime, Ambassador Minji Park received the message 90 minutes later. The Valdrians accepted all terms. They would withdraw all forces from the border regions. They would pay compensation. Emperor Thrain himself would address the Galactic Council in 3 days to formally acknowledge the Valdrian Empire's overreach. Captain Lee stood next to her as she read the message. "We won," he said simply. "We survived," Minji corrected. "Winning implies there are winners. Everyone lost something in this conflict. Soldiers died, resources were wasted, fear and mistrust were generated. The only victory is that it ends now instead of escalating further. The galaxy will see humanity differently now. Yes, some will fear us. Some will respect us. Some will want to test us just as the Valdrians did. We have proven we are not weak. Now comes the harder part, proving we are not monsters. 3 days later, Emperor Thrain stood before the Galactic Council. The chamber was packed. Every species wanted to witness this historic moment. The mighty Valdrian Empire, publicly acknowledging defeat by the humans. Thrain stood tall despite the humiliation. His forearms hung at his sides. His bronze scales seemed duller somehow, or perhaps it was just the lighting. When he spoke, his voice was clear and steady. I stand before this council to acknowledge a grave error. The Valdrian Empire attacked the Terran corridor without just cause. We ignored diplomatic solutions. We dismissed warnings. We believed our strength made us right. We were wrong. The chamber was absolutely silent. The human species defended their territory with skill and determination. They also showed restraint and mercy when they could have chosen cruelty. They defeated our forces while minimizing casualties. They offered us chances to retreat that we did not deserve. They demonstrated that true strength is not the ability to destroy, but the wisdom to choose not to. He paused, gathering himself. I hereby formally recognize the Terran corridor as sovereign human territory. The Valdrian Empire will respect this border absolutely. We will compensate the families of all who died in this conflict, Valdrian and human alike. And I personally apologize to Ambassador Minji Park and the human people for the suffering our aggression caused. He bowed. It was a small gesture, but for a Valdrian emperor to bow to anyone was unprecedented. The chamber remained silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, some delegates began a soft clicking sound. Others joined with different sounds. Each species had their own way of showing respect. And now those sounds filled the chamber. Minji stood and approached the emperor. Your Majesty, the human government accepts your apology and your terms. We look forward to peaceful relations with the Valdrian Empire. Perhaps what began in conflict can grow into something better. Understanding, cooperation, perhaps even friendship. Thrain looked at her, this small human who had brought an empire to its knees. How did you know? That we would stop? That we would not fight to the last ship? Because you are not a monster, Minji said quietly. You are a leader who made mistakes. We all make mistakes. The measure of a leader is whether they learn from them. She paused. And because we made sure the cost of continuing would be clear while the path to peace remained open, we gave you a choice. You chose wisely. Your species is strange, Ambassador. You prepare for war with incredible skill, but you seek peace with equal determination. We learned something important in our history, Your Majesty. War is easy. Peace is hard. Any fool can fight. It takes wisdom to build. We choose the harder path because we know where the easy one leads. In the months that followed, the galaxy adjusted to a new reality. Humanity was not weak. The species that had seemed gentle and soft had proven themselves in the oldest test, combat. But they had also proven something else. That winning a war is not the same as being warlike. That having the capability to destroy does not mean you must use it. The Terran corridor became a symbol, a line that showed you could stand up for yourself without becoming a monster. That you could fight when necessary but choose peace when possible. Other species looked at humanity with new eyes, wondering what other surprises the Death World species held. Trade agreements were renegotiated. Defense pacts were proposed. Scientists wanted to collaborate. The humans who had been dismissed as barely civilized were now sought after as partners. Some species feared this change. Others welcomed it. The galaxy was never quite the same. In the Valdrian Empire there was unrest. Some called for Thrain's removal. Others supported him for choosing wisdom over pride. The empire did not fracture, But it changed, became more cautious, more thoughtful, less certain that strength alone determined outcomes. On New Perth, Governor Soo-Jin Kim stood at the ceremony, dedicating a memorial to those who had died in the conflict. Both human and Valdrian names were carved into the stone, because the dead deserved remembering, regardless of which side they had fought on. "Why include the Valdrian dead?" Chen asked her. "They were the invaders." "Because they were also soldiers following orders," Soo-Jin said. "Because their families grieve just as ours do. Because if we want lasting peace, we must acknowledge that our former enemies are people too. They made mistakes. So did we in our history. The only way forward is together." In Earth's military command, Fleet Admiral Ji-Sung Park prepared his final report on Operation Deathworld. The after-action analysis would take months. Lessons learned would be integrated into training. Technologies demonstrated would become standard. Humanity had shown its capabilities. Now came the work of making sure those capabilities were used wisely. "What did we learn?" the Prime Minister asked him. "That we can win," Admiral Park said. "But more importantly, that we should not have to. The best victory is the one avoided through diplomacy. The second best is the one achieved with minimum casualties. We managed both. That is the real success. And if another empire challenges us, then we show them the same thing we showed the Valdrians. Mercy first, warnings, chances to step back. But if they push us past that point, we remind them why humanity survived 10,000 years of fighting itself. We remind them what a death world species really is." Ambassador Minji Park sat in her office on Nexus Prime, looking out at the stars. In her hand was a message from her government. They wanted her to continue as ambassador, to use the respect humanity had earned to build stronger relationships across the galaxy. She thought about accepting, about the work still to be done, about making sure the galaxy understood humanity correctly. Not as warriors, not as conquerors, but as builders who could fight when necessary, as dreamers who could be practical when required, as a species that had looked into the darkness of its own nature and chosen to seek the light instead. Her communicator chimed. Captain Lee's face appeared. "Ambassador, the Council wants to establish a new committee on conflict resolution. They want human representation. They think we understand both sides of it, the fighting and the peace." "We do," Minji said, "because we have been both, warriors and peacemakers, destroyers and builders. We know the cost of each path. That gives us unique perspective. Will you take the position?" "Yes, because someone needs to make sure the lesson the Valdrians learned does not get forgotten. That strength without wisdom is meaningless, that mercy is not weakness, that the gentle species from Earth chose peace not because they had to, but because they wanted to." She looked out at the infinite stars, at the vast galaxy full of species learning to coexist, to cooperate, to build something better than endless competition and conflict. Humanity had earned its place at the table, not through conquest, through demonstration of capability paired with restraint, through showing that being strong enough to destroy meant nothing if you were not wise enough to build instead. The Valdrians had stepped where they should not have stepped. They had learned their lesson. Now came the harder work of making sure that lesson mattered, of building a galaxy where such lessons did not need to be taught at such cost, of proving that humanity's greatest strength was not its ability to fight wars, but its determination to prevent them. And in the darkness between stars, human ships patrolled silently, ready if needed, hoping never to be, carrying the message that humanity had learned through pain and was determined to teach through example, that the measure of a civilization is not what it can destroy, but what it chooses to protect.